out. Everybody.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. Your boys are back. And we got an episode today which I think a lot of us will be able to relate to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, to a certain extent.
Yes.
When video games turns fatal. Luckily, that has not happened in any of our lives.
Nope.
As longtime video game enjoyers.
When did you start playing video games? Do you remember like your first game?
Yeah, it was Super Nintendo.
Same.
You know, obviously playing Mario, but there was this one game that my brother and I loved. It was called like Biker Mice.
Whoa.
And it was like a bunch of it was like racing little motorcycles, and it was like, I think, mice and just other creatures, but it was so fun and we loved it.
Awesome.
I don't know, it had all these different tracks and stuff. It was kind of like Mario Kart in a way, but with
vermin.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I like those old game sensibilities we had. It
Yeah.
was more fun back then. Yeah, I think my earliest memory is probably Yoshi's Island on the Super NES. But I do remember we had this game. It was like Ken Griffey Jr.'s Grand Slam game, which we loved so much. It was so addicting. It's addicting.
Danny, what about you?
Mine was Pokemon Yellow for the Game Boy Advance.
Nice.
Game Boy Color, sorry.
Game Boy Color, dude.
The first game I ever bought was Red version.
Nice.
And with my own money.
Yeah, you had a Game Boy Color too?
Yeah, love
Yeah,
it.
Game Boy Color was where it was at. Played the shit out of Donkey Kong.
Yo.
So fun.
Nintendo in general.
Yeah,
Amazing
so
game,
good.
especially early on.
Yeah.
When you're first starting your video game journey. And now kids are just jumping right into the AAA titles. And like, they're not even wasting time with Nintendo anymore. They're like going right into Call of Duty.
Yeah, give me the
Age 8.
gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
But to give you a little bit more of an introduction to our episode, we're going to be covering some different stories surrounding some different games where things, people just take it way too far. And unfortunately, both adults and children become victims of basically this addiction to video games.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. And so it's pretty sad. I'm not going to lie to you. These stories are definitely not uplifting at all.
No.
They're major bummer for sure.
Yeah.
Really sad at the end of the day. But I think it kind of speaks to a larger issue. And this is something that I think society's really wrestling with, especially with parents, and myself included, being a relatively new parent, is the screen time thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how much screen time is good, how much screen time is too much. And then you introduce video games into the mix where these games are, even iPad app games are super, super addicting and are developed in a way to hook you
No
in.
end. Yeah.
No end.
There's no end.
And so it's kind of a larger conversation that's pretty controversial.
Oh, yeah.
So we're definitely not going to claim to have any sort of insights on that or solutions there, but it's definitely something worth talking about.
Yeah, we'll get to dig into like how the DSM-5 categorizes video games, because they don't necessarily state it's an addiction. The closest thing you can get to like quote unquote video game addiction is gambling addiction, but they don't. It's called like a gaming disorder, internet gaming disorder, but they don't classify it specifically as an addiction. But it seems close, and they do have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mentioned in the DSM-5, which is huge. So
Well,
we'll get to
there's,
dissect a little bit of that and kind of talk about how much video games play into some of these cases. Is it something else going on, or are video games really the problem here first and foremost?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. There's also something that I've been introduced to just in, with parenting friends, childrenandscreens.org. It's an organization that's really diving into the research around screen time, potential advantages and disadvantages, and how it affects developing humans and their behavior.
Oh, man.
It's pretty wild. And I'm sure if you're a parent and you've been on TikTok and, you kind of follow some of those parenting accounts, you can see plenty of examples of parents who've had to learn the hard way when it comes to, giving your kids technology. Because the big thing with young kids now, especially before they're really old enough to kind of latch on to gaming, is the iPad thing or just tablets. And so you see kids everywhere out in public with tablets, and some kids are just, it's an extension of them at age 5. Yeah. And they're just carrying around their tablet everywhere. And they've got their games loaded up on there. You could play Minecraft on your iPad. I mean, my daughter is 2.5 and she has her own iPad. And she has games on it. She loves the Bluey game.
Nice.
Which is, it's pretty low stim. It's, it's just all the Bluey characters and different scenes from the show and allowing in kind of just interactive thing. But then I really try to gear her towards the learning games. So she's got a bunch of games that are developing her, sorting puzzles, colors, shapes, what I mean, numbers. And in that way, I think it can be a really great tool and an asset as a parent, because it just, on a plane ride, which I was just on for 3.5 hours, it's, I don't know how our parents entertain us. I don't understand.
Occasionally my parents, if it was a long enough road trip, my dad, they bought like this tiny little, it was a TV with a VCR in it.
Yeah, I remember those.
My dad would like strap it to like a milk crate or something in the center console. And so it'd be a tiny screen, but we'd watch, whatever, Shrek or whatever. That would be a way to keep us entertained.
But then it'd be like books,
yep.
CD players,
the Game Boy Color.
Yep. So, but now kids got, whole computer,
the whole internet,
and the whole internet and all these games. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting. But these stories are absolutely the worst of the worst, the most disturbing examples of when too many games goes way too far. We love video games.
We love it.
We love them so much that sometimes we forget what games are paying for.
Yeah, all the time.
Like World of Warcraft. I completely forgot I was still paying for World of Warcraft until I got, I literally had a recurring subscription going. It was a yearly one. And I stopped playing WoW probably about a year or so ago. And sure enough, alert popped up and it said, your World of Warcraft subscription's about to renew for $120 a year. And so it was able to give me the heads up, like, bro, do you still want to pay for this or not?
Do you still want to shovel that money over to Blizzard?
And I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done with that game. Which who knows if I'm really done. But I'm done for right now.
Good. It's healthy to take breaks,
So, with a few taps on the Rocket Money app, I was able to get that canceled, which is amazing. Rocket Money, if you're not familiar, is a personal finance app that helps them find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. So many great features of Rocket Money. I mean, there's just the dashboard alone is great. You can track all of your utility bills coming out, which is really nice. It'll even alert you if they go up in price. There's just so many great features. You can create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. There's a new goals feature, which automatically saves money for you, so you don't have to think about it. I mean, Rocket Money can help you save money in so many different ways, but a great feature they have is the ability to help even negotiate lower bills for you. Rocket Money automatically scans your bills to find opportunities to save, and then they'll be like, hey, do you want us to go see if we can save you some money on this bill? And you just put in some of your account information, and then they go do the rest of it for you. And sure enough, you can save some money on your ISP bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can then take that money you saved and put it back into the video games or buy a new game on Steam, whatever.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features.
So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your finance goals faster with Rocket Money. Download the Rocket Money app and enter our show name, which is Lights Out, as you guys know, in the survey so they know that we sent you. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and tell them you heard about them from our show.
So starting out, this story centers around one of the greatest all-time MMORPGs, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. For those that don't know that acronym, World of Warcraft. You've either played it or you've heard of it, whether you're a gamer or not.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid it.
So on May 20th, 2013, an officer was dispatched to a trailer park home in Anaheim, California. The trailer was home to a married couple, Lester Lewis Huffmeyer and his wife, Petra Huffmeyer. Both were 41 years old at the time, because a concerned neighbor was the one who called the police, and you'll see why here in a sec. When an officer arrived and entered the trailer, they noticed the home was completely uninhabitable. Kitchen appliances were covered in mold and cobwebs. Endless piles of trash, debris, mold, and even feces were scattered throughout the home. The toilets inside the home were also inoperable. And officers also discovered a pile of used condoms under a stuffed teddy bear. How fucking disgusting.
Ugh.
They also found that besides Lester and Petra, their two daughters, who were aged 10 and 5, were also inside the home. The girls had been living in the mobile home with Lester and Petra between May of 2010 and May of 2013. Both were thin and clearly malnourished, and they had been locked inside the home, not allowed to leave for any reason, not even for school. Just flat out evil. The officer reported that both girls had matted hair, rotting teeth, and dirt crusted on their feet. Investigators discovered that Lester and Petra were both unemployed and spent all of their time at their computers playing World of Warcraft. So obviously the officer's like, this is a major problem. This is child abuse. And so they arrested Lester and Petra, and they were charged with 2 felony counts of child abuse, 2 misdemeanor counts of false imprisonment, and 1 misdemeanor count of contributing to the delinquency of a minor and sentencing enhancements for great bodily injury. And both of them pled guilty to their charges. Lester was sentenced to 5 years in state prison, and Petra was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in state prison, which I feel like are very adequate punishments for them for this.
Yeah. Luckily, no one died in this
Yes.
case. That would have been much more tragic. But yeah, clearly, I mean, this is abusive, right?
It's horrible.
Yeah. And I could not find anything, but I'm assuming they lost custody of their children after this.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
This is a case where CPS needs to come in and do a full investigation, and which, the foster system is a whole other animal with lots of issues. But in this severe case, seems like that is the better option here. But this case, like many more that we'll cover in this episode, really puts a spotlight on video games. And like always, after something like this happens, many wonder what causes circumstances like this, and really how much are video games to blame.
So for those who don't know, World of Warcraft has been going strong for more than 2 decades and is generally considered the most popular MMORPG ever made. It's a fantasy game where players get to create their own characters, explore a vast world, level up, and collect a virtually unlimited amount of items in-game. Unlike many games, it runs off of a subscription model rather than a one-time purchase. It costs anywhere between around like $13 and $15 a month, depending on the subscription. It's also considered one of the most highly addictive games ever made. It even got the nickname Warcrack, and it's been satirized famously on South Park for how addictive it is, if you remember that episode, right?
Oh, yeah, dude.
So good. They kill boars for like 3 hours or something. It's so good. But Josh, I know you have played World of Warcraft pretty extensively.
Yeah, I think you guys have tried it at least, right?
I've watched my friends play.
You've never made a World of Warcraft game?
No, I've never actually played.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
You get a medal for that.
The closest I've really gotten was Diablo. I've played.
You downloaded the Blizzard launcher.
Yes, and I've played both Diablo 2, 3, and 4. Mostly 3 and 4, but uninstalled all those games though.
I got introduced to World of Warcraft back in probably right around when it launched. Actually, it was probably a few years after it launched. I think it was middle school. I had a friend who introduced me to World of Warcraft, and I kind of dabbled around on it for a bit. But then it was probably back in 2017. It was when, if you're a WoW player out there, you know what I'm talking about. But when Legion, the expansion Legion launched, is when I really dove in and got really serious with it. And I played the shit out of Legion. And I think that was 2018 It's right around the time that I started this company, actually. Like 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 18, 19, 20 was my, when I went full blown. I played the shit out of it every day and played it pretty hardcore, I'd say. Not the most hardcore player, but got really into it. I mean, it's a extremely fun game and it's immersive. And I think it really comes down to, I'm one who enjoys video games for the escapism.
Right.
I want to feel pulled out of reality. I don't want to think about what's going on around me.
Yeah.
And a lot of games provide this, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody's got a different one that does it for them. But yeah, no, I loved WoW. I still have my WoW account. I was still paying for it as of like a year ago. I still pop onto it once in a while, and I've put a lot of time, money, and so I'll probably never delete it.
Right.
Because it'll always be there.
And you were saying that they're trying to make the game a bit more casual, because I can imagine, I mean, just from what I know of the game, it sounds like what it used to be for a really long time is you almost couldn't play the game casually, right? You had to really grind if you wanted to progress anywhere, and you had to put in a lot of time to get anywhere in that game.
Well, the big issue with it is time. The time commitment that these games require, these massive multiplayer online games, is insane. Especially if you're a new player and you're coming into it, you are going to feel overwhelmed and feel like you are so far behind the curve that you're either going to quit as soon as you log in. You're going to be like, fuck this. This is going to take too much time to even get to a level that I'm even having fun. Or you're going to spend an exorbitant amount of money, because the thing with WoW is there is a lot of services, both provided by Blizzard, the game company, but also outside services like boosters and things like that you can pay real world money for somebody to then go play your account for you to level you up, to get your gear.
Gotcha.
And I'm guilty of that for sure.
Yeah.
I racked up, I got into a little bit of trouble. And this is now a funny story for Kendall and I, but I racked up like $7,000 in credit card debt playing these games. And I actually there's a website called epicmpc.com, still there, but it's basically a marketplace where you can buy and sell accounts. Whoa. So you can go buy other people's accounts who've put hours and hours into it. So I got really, I would say, kind of addicted to this thrill of buying other people's accounts. So I went and bought people's accounts for real world money that I didn't have. And we're talking anywhere from like $100 for account to a high-end account could cost you almost $1,000.
No way.
That people are selling these accounts that they've put hours and hours into.
Whoa.
So I started buying them, and then I'd play the accounts. I would add a little bit to it, and then I would try to resell it. It's not a good business.
Yeah. What's the return on investment?
The return is not good because you are always going to buy high and then end up selling low,
right?
Just to get rid of it. And then you'd have to worry about accounts getting banned, and when you're changing hands, or like the original owner could go reclaim the account.
Oh, that's dirty.
But it's I got really, really into it. Like,
yeah,
it was a problem for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you can admit that now.
Yeah. No,
moved on.
The day I had to admit that, it was like right before we got married. Actually,
I thought you were going to say your wedding day or something like that.
But it
really
was
critical.
It was
like
coming up, and I knew that we were getting married, and I knew that she was going to figure out like what was going on with my debt, and I wanted to just come clean too.
Yeah,
I wanted to be like, hey, I literally cried too. This is kind of embarrassing for me, but I literally cried. I was like, Kendall, you're not going to believe this. You're going to be so mad. Don't leave me. But I have a credit card with $7,000 of debt on it, and it's all from video games.
Damn.
She was really pissed at first.
Oh, I can imagine. But hey, you came clean. You got it sorted out. Those days are long behind us now.
Long behind us. And, now if I do put money into it, I make sure, I budget
it's an appropriate
amount. Yeah, it's appropriate amount. I
Yeah.
don't go overboard with it because I'm an adult. I've matured since then.
Yeah.
And I know that it's stupid to waste. And it's like defeats the purpose of playing the game.
Yeah.
If you're just paying for people to play it for you,
Absolutely. And people are probably like, why are these chowderheads talking about World of Warcraft? I think this really sets the scene, like personal examples like Josh's really set the scene for what's to come here throughout this episode, and how all of a sudden gaming can just grow into this tumor in your life where you almost, at some point throughout your process, you did realize that you had a problem, but how long do you think you were playing until you were like, hey, maybe I should address this?
Oh, easily 6 to 8 years.
Probably. Yeah.
Years.
It's a long time.
Years. And then it's like these games create this anxiety almost of, this FOMO.
Yeah. FOMO marketing is really big.
It's really bad. And I still struggle with it. I don't play WoW anymore. The game I play now is Lord of the Rings Online, but it's another massive multiplayer online role-playing game that I've been playing since 2007. So I have like 18 years into this game. A lot of time and money into that one as well. But it's this feeling of, oh man, I wish I could just log on right now and play. Yeah. And for some people, they negate all responsibilities they have, as you just heard with this couple, to play this game because they don't want to miss out.
Yep. And they have specific drops, like item drops that you can only get at certain times. And that's how they kind of get you to crawl back in there. Right?
Well, I think the other big component to these games that doesn't exist in other games is you're playing with other real people.
Right.
And so if you join a guild in one of these games, which is basically a group of other online players that you join, you have buddies that are on when you want to be on.
Your social circle becomes part of the game.
Becomes the online game. Yeah. And then there's events and, if they're running a raid or something like that, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to miss out on the raid, but everybody's starting it at 8:00. And if I'm not on, I'm not going to be able to do the raid.
Right.
And usually these sort of end game content that they build into it have to be done as a group. And it's got the best loot. It's got the best gear. It's got all the best items. And so you don't want to miss out on those, because to get the best gear and essentially be the best in the game, kind of, even then, you want to be on at a certain time. So you get this sort of...
You're scheduled to play.
Yes. Your schedule then becomes revolved around the game.
Yeah. And you're paying a subscription for it. So you'll feel like you're wasting money if you're not on it. Right. Yeah. It's all by design.
It's all by design, and it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, for sure.
And for me, video games, one reason people are like, why don't you play any other games? And I'm like, unfortunately, at this point in my life, I've committed so much time and money into these games that if I go and play another game, I feel like I'm cheating on these other games. Like I'm serious. I literally feel like I could be playing this game because I'm falling behind. I'm not gonna be up with all my friends on it. And so, of course, I've played loads of other games over the years, but none to the extent that I play these MMORPGs, because they're just, once you start them,
it's hard
and
to
you
get
play
out.
them like pretty, to a serious level. They're very difficult to get out of unless you just quit cold turkey and don't play. Like, I'd almost need to just stop playing video games altogether for all of it to go away.
Yeah.
Because if I go pick up another game,
you're not interested.
It's hard for me to get interested, but then I also have this mindset of, I need to be the best at this game. So I'm gonna invest whatever money and time into that game. And so, in most games now, especially online connected games, have some sort of in-game currency. They have some sort of services or boosters or whatever it is.
In other words, they're evil.
Yes,
fuck.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard. I have a problem.
That's good. I'm glad you can admit it, though. I think a lot of people wouldn't, and but to Josh's point, we're not going to get too deep into how they design these games, because that could be just a huge rabbit hole. That'd be the whole episode. But I'll dive into just a little bit of what makes these games so addicting. They have a variable reward system, which is incorporating unpredictable rewards such as loot boxes to encourage continuous play. Keyword continuous play. They have time-limited events, as we were talking about. They offer exclusive content or rewards available only for short periods, creating urgency and promoting frequent logins. They have progression mechanics. This is, they design leveling systems or achievements that provide continuous goals, motivating players to keep playing. They also, as Josh just mentioned, they have microtransactions, which encourages in-game purchases that offer advantages, fostering a cycle of spending to enhance gameplay. And microtransactions, you know, for those who might not know, you're either buying an in-game currency with real money and then buying items or improvements, cosmetics, or like stat boosters or like XP boosters, stuff like that. Josh is looking at me like, yeah.
Bought them all. I've bought them all.
So it's
well, and it's even in everybody has played a mobile game.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody on their phone.
It's designed exactly like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And even like with the XP boosters you'll buy for real money, they'll be like, this is only active for 2 hours.
Yep.
So it's like, I gotta
spend the 2 hours to make the money worth it.
Exactly.
I can't log off before it's done.
No, not a chance. Well, yeah, without getting too much in the weeds, game's addictive design choices, we'll focus on some larger studies that try to understand why the game is so fulfilling for players. And many have pointed to specific social factors, which we kind of mentioned as a driving force for WoW's appeal. In one report, which it was 161 players, and they were studied to determine their levels of anxiety inside and outside of World of Warcraft. The authors of the study used the UCLA Loneliness Scale and Social Phobia Inventory, and they noted that the most important aspect of MMOs is the ability to form strong friendships in the game. Many of the players felt that it was easier to socialize in-game because things like their ethnicity, attractiveness, and sexuality were removed since players exist behind an anonymous avatar. If you don't know, crash course in RPG, you essentially build your own character. You choose what they look like. You choose their starting stats. You get to fully immerse yourself in someone who is not you at all. Or, I mean, you could make a character that is very much like you, but I think the appeal is that you get to choose this fantastical character that is not you at all. And so you kind of socialize through this character. Some people even get into character and socialize that way. So that's
role-playing service.
Yeah.
Where the requirement is even more strict, and there's guilds that are, role-playing where you have to act and talk from your character as if you are your character. And you create storylines, and you have to, they have like naming guidelines. So you've got a name within like the parameters of the world that makes sense. And I've never gotten into the role playing
like you get the voice and everything.
No, I that to me is just a little, I don't know, just not for me. I get into it a little bit. I think sometimes it's fun to just pretend that I am my character, and to some extent, but I'm always still based in reality.
I would do it at the table like D&D, just because it's really fun and hilarious, just doing comedic bits like with your characters. Or if I was like, I would run like one shot, like a daily one night games where we would just do this, and I would run the game. So I would be like all the characters, and I find that fun. You get to like act with your buddies and just kind of shoot the shit and be ridiculous with each other. I don't think I could like consistently stay in character I guess I would for a D&D for like a really long time, but at the end of the day, a lot of the characters were kind of just extensions of myself, but then I would kind of add a little flair to it or whatever here and there. So I do get the appeal. It is really fun just doing bits. It's like an improv game, right?
Yeah. It's very much just sort of acting, in a virtual world,
right? Versus
in, a play or theater or something like that. But people even take it to a whole other level. I mean, if you know anything about WoW, you know about Goldshire, the Goldshire Tavern. Is a place where people get freaky in there.
Really?
Yeah. Like if you go on any role-playing server, there's always people are like stripped all their clothes off, and you can do what are called emotes, which basically like you type in a command, and then your character acts out that sort of movement or action or something like that.
I see where this is
going. And people get fucking wild in there and start, are basically like having virtual sex with each other in this virtual world.
Yeah.
And I mean,
sex always comes into play with RPGs,
of course,
I feel like. Yeah. And I know I've heard of even stories of people meeting their significant others through World of Warcraft. People get married through World of Warcraft. It's,
Danny just laughed.
Don't act
He
like
knows
you
what I'm
haven't been
talking
there.
about.
Yeah.
He knows what I'm talking about.
I do. It's just funny when you say it out loud,
Isn't it? It sounds fucking ridiculous.
but it's completely real. Like
It's-
I've seen it too.
I could log onto my account right now and fucking show you that there's always people in there, and they're always all their clothes are, which again, it's a teen rated game, so
Right.
there's no nudity per se,
Mhm.
but it's
not graphic. Sexuality.
no, you
yeah.
can't actually act out, sexual things, but
Right.
it's just funny.
Yeah. In true gamer form.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like teabagging.
Very nerdy,
Stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you can see how this alleviates social anxiety, right? Even something like that, I don't know, when you actually, have sexual I don't know why I sounded so weird about that, but, when you actually have sex with someone, you are the one that has to get naked. It's you. You're very vulnerable. In worlds like this, it's not you. You don't really have to be vulnerable. You can hide behind 600 layers of digital whatever, and it's not really you. It's somebody else that you've created. So like all that anxiety is gone. So it feels like a very protected space for a lot of players. So a virtual world like World of Warcraft can really help someone avoid negative effects of social interaction and social anxiety by feeling safer than interactions in real day-to-day life. With that said, I do want to put an asterisk on that. You should experience some level of, get out of your comfort zone. I don't want to get on my soapbox about it, but that's the joy of life, is just being a bit uncomfortable sometimes and just getting out there. I don't know why I'm looking right at Daniel, but
This episode of Lights Out's brought to you by one of our favorite sponsors. And we're not just saying that.
No.
Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas, and the world's best chocolate chip cookies, man.
Oh my God.
I love their chocolate chip cookies so much.
Man. It's too good.
They're giant.
Yeah.
Big, thick chunks of chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
and they just melt in your mouth.
Yeah. And I'm trying to watch my figure because, it's summer's coming up. I'm trying to get my summer bod going, but that is the exception. I'm like, I'm going to eat every single cookie they send me.
It's Wild Grain is our cheat meal every week because we love it so much. I mean, they're sending what tastes like just made right in your kitchen pasta and breads. The sourdough bread is out of this world.
Magic.
For sandwiches, for toast, you name it. It is just some of the best baked goods. And I've gotten baked goods from every bakery in this entire state, and none of them come close to Wild Grain.
They sent me a croissant toast, which I have never heard of in my life, but it's cut up toast and it's frozen, and you just drop it in the toaster, which I've never heard of a toast going from frozen to, I guess it's a thing, but I never did it. It's a piece of toast that tastes like a croissant.
Oh God.
What? It blew my mind.
And then their butter is just
so good.
They send this butter, and it is just the best butter I've ever had.
It's so good.
I don't know what sorcery they got going on in the kitchen over there at Wild Grain, but they are doing something right. And it's a family-owned business, which I love. This is a small business that really puts their heart and soul into their products, and you can taste it.
You really can.
Your kitchen smells amazing, and it takes all the hassle out of baking.
Yes.
None of us have time to bake. It's such a science that why not leave it to the experts who've been doing this a lot longer than you have, and get fresh baked goods made in your oven in like 25 minutes or less. I mean, it is so easy. There's no mess, no cleanup.
I dunked the cookies in some whole milk. I felt like I died and went to heaven. It's the greatest thing ever.
If I had to choose a last meal, it would include the Wild Grain chocolate chip cookies, because my God, nothing like a fresh Wild Grain chocolate chip cookie while playing your favorite video game.
Let's go.
You got one hand on the mouse, one hand on your cookie, dunking it in the milk. You got milk all over your keyboard.
It just gets disgusting, but it's worth it.
It's so good. So are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? Be sure to check out Wild Grain so you can begin building your own box of artisanal breads, pastas, and pastries. For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box from that point on when you go to wildgrain.com/lightsout when starting your subscription.
That's right. You heard Josh. Free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/lightsout. That's wildgrain.com/lightsout, or you can use promo code lightsout at checkout.
We promise you won't regret it.
It's so good. But this study concluded that out of the 161 players that they studied, they generally experienced less anxiety while in World of Warcraft than they did in the real world. Those who made friendships and joined groups within the game experienced even less anxiety. Another study focused on the effects that escapism had on outcomes from the game, and the researchers evaluated different coping styles to categorize MMO players. And they found that escapism does not lead to an increased rate of negative outcomes from playing. There you go. The study discovered that one of the coping strategies that was found to be correlated with the desire for escapism was wishful thinking. And I found this kind of fascinating. This means that World of Warcraft is desirable to people who are generally unsatisfied with something in their lives. I mean, that makes sense, right? This wishful thinking can then manifest as escapism in World of Warcraft because, like we were saying, they set you up with these goals. Like you can attain goals very fast. If you're unsatisfied with where you are in life, you feel stagnant or that you're not getting somewhere, or maybe you're even on the downswing. You know, you could just hop into World of Warcraft. You can bang out a few missions. You see the progress happening. I get it. That's the appeal,
they
right?
literally call them achievements.
Yeah, exactly.
You get achievements and you start it, and they send up little notifications on your screen whenever you complete something. World of Warcraft does this. They've really perfected this science because it really gives you the experience of I'm building something. Like the time that I'm putting into it, I'm getting results from.
Yeah.
In other games, you get that to a certain extent, but I've never liked games where I put in a bunch of time, I get to the end of the game, and then I'm never going to touch that game again unless I replay the whole game.
Right.
Versus,
I like those games. Those are my preferred games. Yeah. I like when the credits roll and I'm like, I can put this down and walk away.
See, for me, I'm like, no, I want to come back to this and continue building on it because I feel like it's a waste otherwise, which is... It is such a bizarre thing because...
I get it.
Because you're able to enjoy more games.
Right, yeah.
Danny's able to enjoy more games, and your guys' Steam libraries are far bigger than mine.
Yeah, for better or worse.
Hundreds of games.
Yeah.
You know?
That doesn't mean I've played them all.
Yeah,
true.
Some sit there. Some sit there.
Steam will get you, man.
Yeah.
Like, amazing deal, the Steam summer sale. You know?
99 cents for a game? Sure, I'll pick it up and never touch it.
Yeah.
But the MMOs, man, they keep you coming back and they design everything in the game to make sure that you return, and you do.
Yeah.
And I'm living proof of that.
And I think World of Warcraft has perfected that.
Yes, they have perfected it.
But I think we should clarify that I think most games are trying to achieve this.
Yes.
Like World of Warcraft from Blizzard, they've got it down to a science, where I think other games, even if they're not really that hardcore with the addictive aspects, I think a lot of games, I shouldn't say all games, because some games honestly keep their integrity and they do not try and do like microtransactions. They keep it to a game that has a beginning, middle, end. But I think there are a gajillion games out there that are just trying to be the next World of Warcraft.
Yeah, well, I mean, gaming has become such an industry, and a lot of game developers, you know, some of them go into it the right reasons. I just want to build a cool game. I'm not as worried about the financial part of it. But the reality is that to make any game nowadays is very, very expensive, takes a long time to develop, and they get fucked up constantly.
Yeah.
And people, you know, these companies invest millions and millions and millions of dollars into the games. And then when nobody plays it, it's, and then they just return back to WoW. And they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know how many WoW copy clone games have come out that have tried to take down WoW? It's insane. I've played most of them because I always try the next WoW clone to see.
Yeah, what was the last big one?
New World.
Yeah.
Amazon Studios. I actually played that I probably have 500 hours into that probably. Actually enjoyed that game quite a bit. But they lost their population. They had major issues on launch, and then eventually people left and went back to WoW and the games they had been playing prior. It's been very difficult to dethrone WoW in this category, because it's just, they have got people so hooked that even a new game because WoW, if you look at the graphics engine and you look at just the graphics in general, doesn't look that great compared to a lot of these new games that are coming out with all of the new graphics technologies and that look realistic. And no, this is like a toony animation style graphic that they kind of upgrade a little bit, but they've kept it very much what it once was as much as they can.
I think that goes to show you don't really need to make a beautifully flashy game to make a highly addictive game.
Yeah. I could go on and on. But in 2018, a journalist named Kellen Beck wrote an article titled, quote, "How World of Warcraft Became a Life-Consuming Addiction for Me." His experience is not as dire as the previous cases, but his story is a solid example of how someone can get lost in a game like WoW, leading to negative effects in real life. He first admitted that he played the game way too much to the point where he could understand how people could classify it as an addiction. He played WoW habitually for about 4 years, starting when he was 14. And right off the bat, he loved the game for its mystery, loved how the world unraveled and how his character progressed. And he admitted, quote, "At various times, different aspects of the game filled whatever itch I was looking to scratch. That's part of what makes the beast that is World of Warcraft so addicting to so many people. If you get tired of doing one activity, you can try doing another." And that is something that they do very, very well. Yeah. Because it's not
you just get distracted with another side quest.
There's so many things and things to collect that you will never run out of things. There are very few completionist players out there who've gotten close to doing everything in game. The only person that I know of who's been close is Asmongold.
The famous
streamer. Famous WoW player. He's up there.
Yeah.
He's put, I don't even want to know how many days that dude has put into WoW.
Yeah.
But he's also made a career and a living off of it. And that's like what he's known for, is he's the WoW streamer, which that's a whole other conversation we'll talk about later. But this guy, he began spending all of his free time at his desk in his bedroom. His parents tried to make sure he went to bed at a reasonable time, and sometimes he'd pretend to be asleep and then return to his desk late at night to play more and more. Done that for sure.
That's why my parents did not allow me to have like a gaming system or a computer in my room till I was like 17 or something before I even had my TV in my room. And that was only because the basement flooded. So we had to move shit up. So I was like, oh, well, can I throw the TV in my room? That was the only reason I ever got to. Yeah, they were pretty strict on, no gaming devices.
That's good parenting.
There you go.
My parents tried to do the same thing to me too. And what their method was at the time, would be pulling the modem. So we had like dial-up internet or DSL. So they pull the modem.
No more internet.
So internet's gone because they knew my game required me to be on the internet.
Damn. Yeah,
But it got so bad to the point where I would literally, and they'd put it in their closet in their room. I would get up in the middle of the night, sneak into their room, into their closet, retrieve the modem.
Wow. Then the tripwire goes off. It's like it's like Indiana Jones. Yeah.
And I would plug the modem in, play till 3 a.m, return it to their room, and they never knew.
Wow.
Because I just wanted to be, I was like, I'm missing out. I got to be on. My friends are all on. And I would do that night after night.
While they were sleeping?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then I would take it even a step further, because I was like, my parents would randomly get up in the middle of the night. My mom would always get up to go to the bathroom, and sometimes she'd wander out into the living room. And one time I got caught, I think I was just actually watching a movie in bed or something on like a portable DVD player, but they noticed light was coming out from underneath my door. So I started literally putting clothes and towels to dark out my room. I was like...
You were locked in.
I was locked in. I was like, they will not find out.
That's good.
And then if I heard them, I'd like turn the monitor off, jump into bed, hide the modem. Yeah. So I relate to this guy. I mean, it's, and I'm sure there's some of you out there judging me hardcore. That's okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's all right.
I respect your vulnerability in this episode, Joe.
Yeah, I'm just being vulnerable. It's a huge part of my life at this point. But his interaction with the game eventually impacted his real life. And I think this is something I've done pretty good. I've not let it impact my real life to the point where it caused real problems for me, which is good. But some nights he would game until the sun rose because he didn't want to stop. He began skipping meals or eating while gaming and throwing the trash around his desk. I've never been that. I always clean my shit. My desk is always clean. But he eventually played upwards of 14 hours a day till his eyes would be so dry. It would hurt to even blink. And then he stopped hanging out with his friends, which that's not good.
That's really bad.
When you start pulling away from people, no.
Yeah.
He would even fake sick so he could just stay home and play more. And when he wasn't playing, he watched YouTube videos about playing, checked Warcraft wikis, and read Warcraft novels. He would get into cycles where he would binge the game for months and then quit. And when he would quit, it's not like he'd become a productive, healthy student. He just replaced it with something else, like watching TV or sitting alone watching YouTube. In his sophomore year of high school, he failed his first class. He also dropped out of AP classes because he didn't want to do the work. He just wanted to game. He was also underweight, skipping meals, and just eating awful food. Whenever he'd hop back into the game, he felt a renewed sense of satisfaction, and then he would burn himself out again. By the end of his senior year of high school, he saw all of his classmates preparing to move on to bigger and better things, and meanwhile, he was a pizza delivery driver with no ambition. And seeing that all those people around him had goals, he figured he should have some goals too. He attended classes at a community college and finally stopped playing World of Warcraft as much. Eventually got good enough grades to apply to a 4-year college. And he would still play WoW here and there, but not nearly as much as he used to. In the end, he specifically admitted that the time he spent playing the game wasn't the game's fault. In hindsight, he recognized that it was a tool he used to ignore his life, to erase stress, and to dull any anxieties that he had. And of course, he used it to escape. He even compared World of Warcraft to drugs, alcohol, and gambling. But he also admitted that he still plays the game after everything, except now he plays it to have fun and hang out with his friends, and he doesn't use it to escape, and he doesn't play it to ignore other things in his life.
Yeah. I think the only
balance.
Yeah. Anything, too much is a bad thing. Too much of anything is a bad thing. But I think the one thing I do disagree with him just a little bit is that, he admitted that the time he spent playing it wasn't the game's fault. I think it's a little bit of give and take here. I don't think it's exclusively his fault or exclusively the game's fault. But I do feel like the game is made in such a way to exploit people who are like this, who want to escape, or who might have an unhealthy relationship with video games. I think the game is built, by design, is meant to attract these people and make them play forever. So I think I want to put the onus at least a little bit on the video game companies who are making games like this. We know that at least gambling can be addictive, and there are elements of video games that are addictive. So that is the only place that I disagree with them just a little bit.
I think that's completely fair, honestly. I think the other thing too that plays into this as well is I was not allowed to play video games for hours and hours on end, which in hindsight was a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I could have ended up like this guy. I've been playing 14 hours a day if my parents let me. But I think there's sort of it's kind of a double-edged blade sword to that, because when I finally could play video games as much as I wanted to, I went even harder because my parents limited my time. I mean, I was allowed 30 minutes a day for my whole childhood until I became a teenager. Then it became like an hour, maybe 2 hours a day. But really, I didn't start hardcore gaming until I left my parents' house. So 17, 18 years old. And when I finally got out into, I have no rules. I have no parents.
Yeah.
I went hardcore into it. And I'll admit it, I failed a college class due to video games.
Yeah, I feel like that's fairly common.
I also played video games in class. I would purposely sit in the back corner. I'd log on to my game, not pay attention, and it was a math class, which was a bad idea. And I would have my game booted up and I'd like pretend to be like working. But I was like totally checked out. But I was so into it because I felt like I had been I was like, I was robbed of all this time I could have been playing. And now I have no rules. But then it became a problem. And I was like, I failed my class. And that was a really embarrassing moment and a wake up call for me because I failed a class that I had to pay for myself.
Ooh, so that hurt.
And it was really embarrassing for me and for, once my parents and my grandparents was who I was staying with at the time, when they found out, they were like, what the hell, dude? Like,
yeah.
And then Kendall found out too. And she was like, dude, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, get it together. Yeah.
So I kind of needed a little bit of that. And honestly, like Kendall's been that person who's kind of
the wake up call.
Yeah. And even, in recent years, it's like I've gotten much better. But I feel like if I ever thought that I didn't have restrictions, I would go full in on it again.
Yeah.
I would play as much as I possibly could. And it worries me that I could do it to a point where I'd never to the point where I would neglect my child, dear God.
Yeah.
And my child has really helped just like.
I mean, you couldn't really find the time to do that anyway.
No,
yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore compared to what it used to. But if I do have free moments and free time, or let's say I have a night, put my kid to bed and, Kendall's out for the night or something like that, and I have like 6 hours, you know what I'm doing?
I'm
fucking getting on, and I'm fucking going hard for the 6 hours. But then I
still have days like that too. Like
I know you guys do.
Oh
I
yeah, there's like
a
Saturday. I'll be like, I mean, I game way less than I used to, but there'll still be a Saturday coming around. It's like I'm just gonna play Metroid Dread the whole day, and that game, highly recommend that game. It's so sick. I've become a big Metroid fan. But again, those games end, but still, I still have those days where I'm like, I'm just gonna stay in my pajamas and game the whole day because I got nothing to do. Sometimes I feel guilty about it, but luckily it's I can only play for so many hours now. And then I kind of feel like I gotta go outside. I gotta go take Jerry out. I gotta go for a jog. I gotta exercise, whatever. I gotta cook some dinner. But I think the longest time I've ever spent in a day gaming, I think I was 18. Funny enough how it's like a lot of these stories, it's like around that time, I was 18 and I was playing Civilization 5.
Oh shit, that takes a long
evil game.
Yeah.
So they're great. They're beautiful games, but they're also really scary because you just the turns keep going. I put 10 hours and one Saturday. I felt disgusting. I felt like I had just ruined not only my day, but like I felt like my life was just corroding. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And I was happy that day came and went because I got some perspective on like just spending a whole day gaming. But I kind of told myself from then on out, I can't really do that anymore. And that game sucked me in. Daniel, do you have
how many hours have you spent playing a game? Be honest.
Like total or in one go?
In one go.
Probably somewhere between like 14 and 15 hours.
Yeah, that's a big sesh.
I was like 14 or 15 years old, and it was another MMORPG called Guild Wars.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, it was like the competitor to WoW, but it was subscription free. So me being a jobless 14-year-old, I'm going to go with that. Yeah. I remember there was a day I spent probably from before sunrise to after sunset playing it. Yeah, they're addicting, man.
Yeah,
they're fun.
Which is why a lot of people don't pick up those games anymore.
Yeah, yep.
And I know. I've talked to Danny about this before, and that's like one thing that he said to me is I can't start playing it because I know I won't stop playing it if I do, and I get it, and I'm like, yeah, dude. If I wasn't years into this, I'd be playing these other games too. I would be playing all these fun games that I see coming out, and as much as I want to play them, I'm like, I just can't bring myself to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely toned it down, and especially this past year, I've probably gamed less this year than I have since I was like 16, but I've just tried to find other things to do because especially after writing this script, I was like, get me out of here. Get me out of here.
You're deleting all of your games on your computer.
Yeah. I'm selling my computer.
Your computer's on Facebook Marketplace
I just put it on the street. I'm like, I don't even want money from this thing. Yeah. Get this demonic box out of my sight. But it's hard. You almost have to like rewire your brain a little bit. Be like, okay, I'm going to go do a project today, or I am going to get outside. I'm going to go kayaking. I'm going to go build my little garden box that I built. Like, I really have to wake up and tell myself, do something else. And that's helped me just like growing that self-discipline because, I think all three of us have really, at least graced or like orbited, if not like really dug into the atmosphere of like, quote unquote gaming addiction or anything, tangential to that. But it kind of scared me. And I'm just like, I'm getting older too. I think that's maybe a part of it where you're like, life's a zero-sum game and I have to allocate my time elsewhere because I don't know, the wrinkles are coming, the gray hairs are coming, and I'm going to die eventually one day. And I want to be able to look back and be like,
how many games did I beat?
Yeah, exactly. I don't really want that checklist I realized in my life anymore. So I've had to wean out of it a little bit. But
yeah, I think just life does that to you. And that's why these stories of parents who that to me is insane. And I think game is part issue, but I think the larger issue is them.
Yeah.
And they have major issues within themselves, and they should not be parents if you're not going to take care of your children. But I think for me, having a child really, and also having 10 pets, I would never forego taking care of my pets or my child for anything self-serving to myself.
Right.
I always make sure everybody else is taken care of, everybody's happy, and then if I have time at the end of the night to unwind for an hour or two and play a little video games, that's sort of
allocate
my reward now.
Reward system. That's
use it as like a reward.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a nice way for me to wind down and just kind of unplug before I go to sleep.
Yeah. Once I started treating games as like a little treat,
I
think that's when I started having a much healthier relationship with it. But yes, I mean, speaking of parents, this next story we're going to get into, unfortunately, it has something to do with, parents and neglect. And I do want to state for the listeners who are like, my God, these guys are really talking about this a lot. I think it's because this topic we're very passionate about. We're all gamers, and we've, like I said, we've all kind of orbited this. So I'm not even going to apologize for it.
No, don't apologize.
We're going to get to gab
this is
on
who we
this
are.
one.
If you don't like it, then
yes, get out of here.
Find another show.
Yeah. So here, back to, the true crime elements. While some people like the guy we were just talking about, Kellen, can kind of recognize when they have a problem, some people just can't. Josh was talking about how he'd never neglect his kid or his animals or, a responsibility he has. Unfortunately, there are cases where people do ignore those things, and it's very tragic. So in September 2010, a South Korean couple, Kim Jae-bom, 41, and his wife, Kim Young-chan, 25, were completely lost in a game called Prius Online. All the while, their 3-month-old daughter was slowly starving to death. So Prius Online is another MMORPG. It is very similar to World of Warcraft. The game revolves around the player character's companion, Anima, who players must care for and protect, and many players end up forming a close emotional bond with this character. So this couple had met through a chatting website in 2008 and had a daughter, Kim Sarang, in 2010. The couple knew so little about child rearing, apparently, that the mother didn't know she was due until her water broke. They had never gone to see a medical professional throughout the entire pregnancy, and their daughter was also born premature. Despite being new parents, the couple spent most of their time in a 24/7 internet cafe, which is evil, and we'll get into a little later. And they would just game sometimes up to 12 hours per session. They explored a vast fantasy world and slayed mythological creatures while they left their 3-month-old daughter at home. In between these sessions, they would return to their one-room apartment for a short while to just give her a little powdered milk. But after one long 12-hour session, they returned home to find their baby dead. Police were called, and they immediately suspected malnutrition since the baby was so emaciated. The couple's lawyer said the baby died, quote, eyes open and her ribs showing. The autopsy later confirmed the child was malnourished to the point of death.
This is fucking horrific.
It's so awful. A South Korean police officer said, quote, the couple seemed to have lost their will to live a normal life because they didn't have jobs and gave birth to a premature baby. They indulged themselves in the online game of raising a virtual character so as to escape from reality, which led to the death of their real baby. So during this investigation, the couple actually fled to the wife's parents' house and hid there for 6 months. I mean, that's kind of an admission of guilt, right? But they were eventually found and arrested by police. They were then sentenced to 2 years in prison.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
2 years for this?
Isn't that insane? But the judge suspended Ms. Kim's sentence because she was 7 months pregnant, and he said she needed some, quote, mental stability. So she didn't even go to prison. During the trial, Mrs. Kim said, "I am sorry for being such a bad mother to my baby." Mr. Kim said, quote, "I am sorry for what I did and hope that my daughter does not suffer anymore in heaven." That's really all they had to say about it. The case went on to shock South Korea and became one more addition to the list that highlighted the obsessive behavior related to the internet and specifically gaming.
This also, to me, sounds like a them problem.
100%.
These are extremely selfish human beings that should have never been procreating in the first place. If you're not prepared for
the fact that they never saw a medical professional.
Yeah,
she didn't even know she was due until her water broke. That confounds me.
No, these two are complete fucking morons.
Yeah,
and
to say the least,
need to be locked up for a long time.
Yeah,
it's just horrific. I mean, this poor child.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But prolonged internet usage has led to countless tragedies, especially in South Korea. That same month, September 2010, a 22-year-old South Korean man murdered his own mother because she had nagged him for spending too much time playing games. After the murder, he went to the nearby internet cafe to just play more video games. Good God, dude. And one of the most bizarre cases of gaming disorder fatalities also happened in South Korea 5 years earlier in 2005. As reported by the LA Times, 28-year-old, quote, Lee Seop was a skinny guy with glasses who wore a gray polyester uniform at his job as a repairman of industrial boilers. And when work let out every day at 6 p.m., Lee would change into casual clothes and hit up the nearby internet cafe in Daegu, South Korea. Here, he loved to play Starcraft, a real-time strategy video game also made by Blizzard, which again, same company that makes World of Warcraft. By August of 2005, Lee had become so addicted to the game that he would sometimes forget to eat, he wouldn't sleep, and stop going to work entirely. Think you may have a problem, man.
Yeah.
And of course, he was fired from his job, and with all the free time in the world now, Lee decided to binge StarCraft for 50 hours straight. That is unbelievable.
I can't even imagine that.
Even like a 12-hour stint is brutal.
Yeah.
You are so
I feel like
fried.
Yeah, after that Civilization 5, I couldn't even think. I remember leaving the game.
Your eyes want to fall out of your head.
I was like, how do I operate as a human?
You just want to go lay down after an extended session like that. No, this dude said, fuck that. I'm going 50 hours.
50 hours.
And it's believed that during this whole binge session of his, he went that entire time without a proper meal. And after 50 hours, he collapsed inside the cafe and he was reported dead just after arriving at the hospital. Park Young-woo, a psychiatrist at the local hospital, said, quote, he was so concentrated on his game that he forgot to eat and sleep. He died of heart failure brought on by exhaustion and dehydration. What on earth?
Yeah. I mean, there has to be more going on here than just, I don't even know how.
How do you forget to eat and drink?
Right.
First of all, even when you're playing video games, you always got to have a drink.
This seems like some
food.
Serious mental health problems at play here.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he wasn't alone because in 2007, a 30-year-old Chinese man died after playing video games for 3 consecutive days. And in 2012, a 23-year-old Taiwanese man died after playing video games at an internet cafe for 23 hours straight. But nobody noticed until 9 hours later. Dozens of others have been gaming around him without even realizing that he was dead. And it wasn't until a waitress approached him that someone finally realized, oh, this guy died.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
He was sitting upright with his hands stretched towards the keyboard. Detectives figured he may have died of cardiac arrest triggered by a combination of fatigue and low body temperatures. Other employees at the internet cafe said that the man had occasionally paused to take a nap during his 23-hour session. So they didn't think anything was wrong.
Man.
But God, these internet cafes 24/7
they're
are
evil.
Dangerous.
That should not exist. Or they should be capping you at a time. Because like, how is this not a liability? What's the insurance?
Yeah, seriously.
What do we do? What are the repercussions of something like this happening? I mean, I get that we can't fully blame the establishment, but they're the ones providing this activity to the point where, I don't know, man, if you've noticed the same clientele is inside your internet cafe for over a day straight, I feel like that's grounds for like ejecting someone. Or like, how is there not a law, a South Korean law, to be like,
you would think there would be.
You cannot stay here for this long. I don't know. It's really blows my mind.
Or like the owner has to do a welfare check or something. Like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
Get up and take
Is
a walk.
All right, yeah.
Take a 30-minute lunch break.
Yeah.
Go home. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I feel like if this were a thing here in the US and, everybody didn't have access to all the devices and internet, really the internet access that we have here in the US, then this would be probably happening here too.
Yeah.
There would be people in 24/7 gaming cafes.
For sure.
And
I think that's also important to note, like the internet aspect is really what we're going to be digging into in a little bit here, because with these deaths specifically, it's internet gaming. It's not just gaming.
Yeah.
These are games that are made to run infinitely and to be played with other people. That's the appeal of it, and to just go forever. So now we're going to dig into, before we get into we'll be getting into some murders more often later, but we are going to dig into, so what exactly is a gaming disorder? Because this confused me. Everyone throws the word gaming addiction around, but I was curious how it's classified. And in East Asia, specifically South Korea, much like the US, is famously known as one of the most quote unquote wired societies in the world. They once treated internet and gaming disorders as just a teenager affliction, they called it, something that only young people dealt with. But many of these cases show that's not true. A lot of these people are 20s, 30s, 40s. To put things into perspective, the global internet penetration rate as of February 2025 is 67.9%, meaning that about 5.6 billion people out of the world's total population are internet users. The US and South Korea are sitting at around 93%, meaning that 93% of our entire population has accessed the internet in the last year, which is a lot. I mean, some people are like, wait, people aren't accessing the internet.
Who are these 7%?
Yeah,
I want to meet them.
I think they factor in like the elderly, like you're in a nursing care unit or something, you can't even use the internet, or like very, very young people, like, infants. Or also, I know there are still, I think it's pretty rare now. I know there were still for a long time, there were places in the US that just didn't have internet. You have to wire it out there. And so in some deep rural areas, they just didn't even have it. So I think they factor in all those, and that's kind of where that 7% comes from. But that is relative to the rest of the world, that is a very high,
super high
internet penetration rate. In 2019, a South Korean government survey showed that almost 20% of the population, nearly 10 million people, were at risk for internet addiction. And according to the National Institutes of Health, 71% of all South Koreans have played video games, making them one of the largest gaming markets in the world. So, to break it down, according to the DSM-5, an internet gaming disorder, sometimes just called IGD, is indicated by endorsing 5 or more of the following 9 criteria. So, Josh, this is where we'll check these off if you endorse 5 or more. 1, preoccupation with online, offline gaming. It's kind of a broad example. 2, experience of unpleasant symptoms when gaming is taken away, i.e. withdrawal. 3, the need to spend increasing amounts of time engaged in games, i.e. tolerance. 4, unsuccessful attempts to control participation in games, i.e. loss of control. 5, loss of interest in previous hobbies and entertainment as a result of and with the exception of games, i.e. giving up other activities. 6, continued excessive use of games despite knowledge of psychosocial problems, i.e. continuation. 7, deceiving family members, therapists, or others regarding the amount of gaming, i.e. deception. 8, use of games to escape or relieve negative moods, i.e. escape. And finally, 9, jeopardizing or losing a significant relationship, job, or education or career opportunity because of participation in games, i.e. negative consequences. So do you think you can check
I don't think I
there?
ever got all 5 of these
No, me neither.
at a time.
Definitely a few have been checked off, throughout life, but yeah, luckily I don't.
But 5 of these all at the same time is pretty intense.
Really bad. Yeah. So the DSM-5 also notes that IGD, or internet gaming disorders, must cause, quote, significant impairment or distress in several aspects of a person's life. This proposed condition is limited to gaming and does not include problems with general use of the internet, online gambling, or use of social media or smartphones. There have been several studies that examine gaming disorders, specifically in South Korea, and one study reported that South Korea has one of the highest gaming disorder rates in the world, sitting at around 11%. It suggested this is due to the country's huge gaming industry and the normalization of gaming throughout the population. Some suggest that cyber cafes, as we were talking about, have become the quote-unquote opium dens of the 21st century, so to speak. They lure players into staying around the clock, and they disregard their health and responsibilities. Many are open 24/7. But it is important to note that the cases we're covering are obviously extreme examples of a small minority of gamers. Many people have very healthy relationships with playing video games, but it's also important to note that the risk of developing a gaming disorder has arguably never been higher. And while internet penetration, gaming devices, and smartphone ownership rates increase, it might only be a matter of time before gaming disorders increase worldwide. Some researchers estimate that video game addiction or gaming disorders affects between about 1% or 10% of the U.S. population. The estimated range is large because many researchers disagree on the diagnostic criteria for a gaming addiction or internet gaming disorder. So, yeah. I
think this could go up with time, especially since gaming used to be exclusive in a lot of ways, because you used to have some sort of console, or you had a computer, i.e. laptop or a desktop, that you would play video games on. But now video games are on our phones.
Yeah, everywhere.
And mobile gaming is quickly becoming more and more popular amongst just the general population. I think most people, even people who they wouldn't classify themselves as a gamer,
right,
or have ever even touched a console or a computer before, partake in some sort of mobile game.
Yeah, you remember when everyone was playing Farmville?
Yeah, Farmville.
You didn't have to be a gamer.
Kendall loves Heyday, which is like a Farmville, the next gen Farmville game. She's put lots of hours into that.
Yeah, plenty of simulator games out there that you're not like a conventional gamer, so to speak.
Angry Birds.
Yeah, I remember some of those. I forgot about that game.
Classic mobile games that kind of hit the market. Now mobile game studios are huge. Clash of Clans is another one.
I remember that game.
I feel like they're just as addicting as any PC game or console game, and oftentimes even more dangerous on the financial front, because it is so easy. You can just use your Apple Pay and just bang. And
it's literally the one-click pay on there. Yeah.
And now kids have access to all these mobile games and can start using parents' credit cards to rack up coins and stuff. So it's something that's not going to go away. It's going to become more and more of an issue. And it's something I think most people are able to limit themselves and have the self-control and discipline to use it at a healthy
and just to reiterate, these are like the most extreme cases across the world. Most people, I feel like they have their priorities in order, and you don't have to really worry about it. But those who maybe are a bit more vulnerable to something like this happening, just the sheer access increase over the last several years, yeah, we might see more of an issue. I don't like fear mongering, but it is worth considering, especially with mobile gaming. I mean, I don't have any mobile games the only mobile game I have now is chess. That's it. No more. And I even deleted, I had a chess.com subscription for a long time and no more.
Good.
I'm out.
Yeah. Rocket money.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
I think this to segue to something that we kind of mentioned, social media. There's also social media disorder.
Yeah.
SMD, which is now being studied by universities and things like that.
Yeah.
I would argue social media is
way addicting.
Is just as addicting as gaming, if not more, and has its own set of sort of pros and cons to it as well.
Yeah.
And there's and maybe we do a future episode on social media.
Yeah.
When social media goes too far, because I mean, there's endless examples of that. But
I have a minimalist phone that it makes my phone really simple. It's just like I can only have 5 things. It's all black and white.
It's like call mom.
Yeah.
Call girlfriend.
Yeah. Call dad.
911.
So, yeah. It's like Google Map.
My Ring doorbell.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it breaks down my phone, so it's really simple because I noticed it's like I had the unconscious thing where I would pull out my phone and go to Instagram or whatever. I started noticing that, so to get rid of that. And now I have a timer on my social media apps and stuff. So it'll warn you like, hey, you've been on here 5 minutes. Get the hell out of here. I'll be like, yes, sir. I'm getting out of here because I noticed just how they're by design. They want to keep you in there.
Yeah.
Right. They want you to see as many ads as possible so they can, rack up the revenue, and they just want to keep you addicted to it. These machines are demonic, man.
After this episode, we're all going to go throw away all of our electronics.
Going back to a flip phone.
And then we'll sneak out in the middle of the night and pull them out of the garbage.
Yeah. I need it. I need it.
Because, we all know we're not going to throw them away. I think the best thing we can do is just recognize if we have an issue with it and take steps to correct it and limit ourselves.
Yeah.
But transitioning now to a more serious note here, because this next story is truly tragic. But again, it's very much on topic here. Because sometimes gaming disorders can, in fact, take a violent turn, especially here in the U.S. In September 2007, in Wellington, Ohio, 16-year-old Daniel Petric snuck out of his bedroom window to buy a copy of Halo 3. Another really...
one of my favorite games.
I'd say if there's a Hall of Fame of games, Halo is for sure. I definitely played Halo. Halo 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. And Reed.
Great game. Yeah. Great game. His father, 46-year-old Mark, was a pastor at New Life Assembly of God, an evangelical megachurch. His parents had forbidden him to buy the game, but Daniel decided to sneak out and buy Halo 3 in secret anyway. He had recently suffered from a snowboarding-related injury and couldn't do many hobbies that involved physical activity, so he became obsessed with gaming in the meantime. According to his father, this was fine at first, but his obsession with more violent video games concerned his parents, so they banned them from the house entirely. Reportedly, he eventually spent up to 18 hours a day playing the game, which is absurd.
Yeah.
And when his parents found out, they took the game and his Xbox 360 away. His father hid Halo 3 inside a lockbox where he had also stored his 9mm handgun. On October 20th, 2007, Daniel took his father's key and opened the lockbox, taking both the game and his father's gun. He then entered the living room where both his parents, Mark and Susan, were about to watch a baseball game. Daniel then asked them, quote, "Would you guys close your eyes? I have a surprise for you." Mark genuinely thought that his son was going to surprise him with something nice. But then he felt his head go numb and his vision went black as his son shot him in the head. Daniel then shot his mother, 43-year-old Susan, in the head, killing her. Daniel then placed the gun in his father's hand to make it look like his father had committed the crime, except his father did not die from the gunshot wound to his head. Without knowing this, Daniel fled the house in the family minivan, taking only one thing with him, his copy of Halo 3. His sister called emergency services, and he was later caught while driving the minivan and arrested. During the interrogation, officers could tell he was fake crying, and he made up a story about how his father was arguing with his mother before he shot her. In Daniel's story, Mark then apologized to Daniel before turning the gun on himself. They would soon figure out the true story once Mark recovered from his wound and gave his account of what had actually happened. The following year, Daniel was 17 at the time of his trial and was tried as an adult in Ohio, meaning he could face life in prison without parole. He was convicted the following year of aggravated murder for the death of his mother and attempted aggravated murder for the attack on his father. Judge James Burge ruled that although Daniel's obsession with the video game may have warped his sense of reality, he was aware of what he was doing and had planned the shooting. The judge also rejected the defense's argument that Daniel was not guilty by reason of insanity. They had argued that the teen's youth and addiction to violent video games made him less responsible. There was ample evidence that Daniel planned on killing his parents, but still the judge said he believed playing video games long enough caused physical and psychological changes in the teenager's brain, similar to drug use. He said, quote, "When you stop, your brain won't stand for it, just as it wouldn't stand for it when you quit using heroin or crack cocaine." He also mentioned that the game treats death as a temporary thing. He said, quote, "I firmly believe that Daniel Petric had no idea at the time he hatched this plot that if he killed his parents, they would be dead forever." Well, in the end, Daniel was sentenced concurrently to 20 years to life in prison for aggravated murder, 10 years for attempted aggravated murder, and 5 years for tampering with evidence. And he is currently incarcerated at Grafton Correctional Institution. Family members have actually since forgiven him. Daniel's father, Mark, had hated his son immediately after the attack, but in the courtroom that day, he stood up as deputies let his son out. Daniel turned and gave his father a wave goodbye, and his father yelled, "We love you, Danny." We actually have a couple clips here we want to show you. So here's a clip from the interview with Mark and how he and his family actually forgave his son, Daniel.
He and his entire family forgave Danny.
Wasn't easy. I told God, you know what? I hate that kid. I hate him. I never want to see him again. In fact, the next time I see him, I will kill him. I told God that.
But with prayer, that changed.
And the Lord spoke to me and said, Danny really didn't know exactly what he was doing.
Pastor Petric believes violent video games turned his son into a killer. Expert Phil Chalmers agrees.
I'm also just really impressed with how well his father healed from it being shot in the head. I mean, he seems like on a cognitive level, it's really high.
Yeah, I think his faith definitely played a big part in it.
Yeah.
He said God spoke to him.
Yeah.
And gave him that clarification that, I think other people could have also came to the same conclusion with,
sure.
That he didn't necessarily know exactly what he was doing. I mean, he's pretty young, right? And can you really truly wrap your head around, what you're doing at that point in time? And here's another interview Daniel did with ABC's Deborah Roberts in 2013, explaining what happened. Let's hear what he has to say.
You were seeing the blood on your parents, on your mom. What were you feeling at that moment?
I'm used to playing these games, and at the end of every round, everything just resets. At the end of every level, everybody's still there.
But you're 16 years old. I mean, you've got to know your parents aren't going to reset after you fire this gun at them. Are you blaming the video game for what you did?
No. I've always taken responsibility for it. I don't try to deny that. I know it's nobody's fault but my own. Did it play a part? Yes, it did. It was the catalyst behind a mindset that caused a murder.
Your dad at that time was fighting for his life.
Mm-hmm.
When he finally came to, he said that he hated you. He despised you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely. Could I blame him? In light of what I did today, even if that was the way he still looked at me, could I blame him? I don't think I could.
Really great interview. If any listeners want to go check out the full one. What do you think of that? Him calling it a
catalyst is, I think in any case, in any murder, you can often find a catalyst to why somebody does such a heinous thing. And in this, from the perspective of also growing up in a religious household and also being limited to what games I could play as well, I was not allowed to play violent video games. I wasn't allowed to play Halo. I only played Halo at friends' houses.
Same.
I wasn't allowed to have any mature rated games, and even teen games were off limits for a long time. So
I don't think I got my first M game until I was like 17 or something. I was 16, 17.
Yeah. So I think I can relate to the not being told you can't have this by your parents and wanting to have it could be a catalyst to taking extreme measures to getting what you want, which I would equate that to the sneaking out and going and getting the Halo 3. And then obviously being upset when they found out he was playing Halo 3 and taking it from him. I can understand that as well, because I went through that as well, of being upset when my parents found my friends' games I had borrowed in my room one time, took all of them.
Yeah, my parents took my Xbox 360 away from me for like a few weeks.
Yeah,
I was livid.
Yeah,
I get it.
So I can understand the anger behind that, but I do not understand the escalation to then going and getting a gun and shooting my parents. And certainly the argument of, oh, well, because in the game I respawn, my parents will just like that.
Bullshit.
That's just a bunch of nonsense too.
Yeah.
So I don't think in a way, the game was a catalyst to his behavior escalating and maybe that internal anger he had towards his parents escalating, but it definitely doesn't go as far as to the reason him playing a game where he's shooting again. And Halo 3 is based in a sort of a different, it's kind of a sci-fi.
They're aliens.
Game. It's aliens you're killing, right? And the guns aren't realistic to human guns. You know what I mean? It's all sort of, sci-fi fantasy. And so the two to me just I don't connect the two.
Yeah, me neither. It sounds like something the defense whipped up, and I'll even go so far as to say it feels like a little bit of satanic panic.
Yes.
Like it's just like, we don't really understand this thing, and we could maybe convince possibly an older jury who doesn't really understand video games. And that was maybe the angle the defense was coming at it from. Because I don't really buy it. They even kind of convinced the judge, that like even he was saying he was comparing it to what, crack or like cocaine.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really not the same.
It's not affecting the brain chemistry.
Right. Yeah.
Video games aren't affecting the brain chemistry in the same way that a substance is.
Yeah.
So you can't equate the two in any way.
But they had kind of convinced the judge of that.
Right.
Which goes to show, I think it was more of a tactic by the defense to try and get leniency.
Yeah. I think he has, again, we're only seeing the surface level of this family. And there's likely other instances of family dysfunction or other instances of parenting. I don't know what the parenting situation with him was for years. And so there's obviously more to the story here than what the media is going to pick up and point out. And likely he clearly has anger issues. To the point where if you're old enough that you should be able to control those outbursts, and you should be able to find a more constructive way that doesn't require harming anybody to deal with those feelings.
Right.
And he made the conscious decision, and it seems like he also hatched a plan, clearly, that he thought would work. And when it didn't work, they went that route to try to create the narrative here. But I mean, at the end of the day, he made the decision to shoot his mom and his dad, and he's the one who has to live with that.
Yeah.
I think how he did it too is also very telling.
Yeah.
He tricked them.
Yes.
He tricked them, and then he threw his father's character under the bus to cover his choice. It was a vindictive move. It didn't seem like a heat of the moment kind of thing. It was planned and disgusting.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's, he's got to, and from that interview, it seems like he's come to the realization that he's the only one that can blame for what happened. And now he's got to pay the price for that,
Another violent offender tied to a potential gaming disorder was 13-year-old Noah Riley Crooks in Osage, Iowa. And in 2012, Noah was an 8th grader at Osage Middle School. His mother, who was 37-year-old Gretchen Crooks, was a nurse at Mercy Hospital in Mason City and was studying to get her master's degree at the University of Iowa. In 2005, she actually traveled to provide medical relief to the Gulf victims of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. She loved football, baseball, boating, horseback riding, and spending time with her extended family. Gretchen was often the disciplinarian in the family and had a stormy but loving relationship with her son Noah. Noah's father, William Crooks, worked at Cargill Kitchen Solutions in Mason City and was a known gun enthusiast. He and Gretchen had been married for 17 years and had 2 other sons as well. There was no history of domestic abuse or criminal records associated with any Crooks family members. Growing up, Noah reportedly had some outbursts in school. He had been on ADD medication since he was about 8 years old, and in the years leading up to the crime, he became more violent. He broke windows and used a knife to stab wooden furniture, couches, and the doors in the family home, and the outbursts seemed to come out of nowhere. Reportedly, he occasionally bullied other children as well, and he had been cruel to animals. He also might have burned down his grandmother's house when he was around 5 or 6 years old. He had also talked about killing his mother to his classmates at school, but he also claimed he loved his family and had a close relationship with his mother. On the evening of March 24th, 2012, Noah was at the family's house with his mother. William was out at a work party. Apparently, Noah had been recently hooked on the popular first-person shooter called Call of Duty. Plenty of you probably know that out there. And his parents had noticed that his grades were slipping, so they took the game away from him. That evening, Noah was upstairs loading his .22 caliber rifle. He then headed downstairs, gun in hand, and found his mother in the kitchen. She was actually facing away from him, making some homemade donuts. Noah later admitted to a child psychiatrist that he felt like he couldn't shoot her in the back because that wouldn't have been honorable. Instead, he headed back upstairs and waited for his mother to call him for dinner. When the time came, he headed back downstairs and he found her sitting in the living room studying her coursework. He then shot her 22 times, killing her. Noah then sent a text to his dad saying, quote, "Dad, this is Noah. I killed Mom accidentally. I regret it. Come home now, please." William, thinking the text was this weird dark joke, responded, quote, "Okay, just throw her in the grove. We'll take care of her later." Noah then called emergency services, telling the Mitchell County dispatcher, quote, "Something came over me and I'm serious. I'm 13 years old and I killed my mom with my .22 rifle. I'm not joking at all. She's dead. I'm scared. I killed my mom with my .22. I don't know why I did it. I am so ashamed right now." He repeated this, several times throughout this phone call. And he also said, quote, "I feel crazy and I know I'm not. I think I have some form of ADD. I tried to her. I didn't do it. I tried to her. I couldn't do it." Here's a short clip of that odd phone call.
I need to get help. I don't know why I did it. I've never thought about doing it before. Something just got in my head. I don't know why. I just wish it was a dream so I could wake up.
That audio really reminds you just how young he is. He really sounds like a kid in this. He then rambled about his concerns about his future, saying, quote, "I'm never going to be able to marry. I'm never going to be able to get a good job now because it'll be on my resume. I mean, I'll barely be able to get a job like McDonald's. I mean, I had plans of going to Michigan State University to get an engineering job, making my own car company. That's all down the drain now. I just wish it was a dream so I could wake up and I could kiss her and hug her." A deputy was then dispatched to the house, and Noah answered the door, still on the phone with the dispatcher. and the deputy then told Noah to sit on the porch and wait for him. The deputy then found the .22 caliber rifle, not loaded, lying across a chair in the dining room, and then he found Gretchen on the living room couch with countless bullet holes in her chest. Her pajama top was partially unbuttoned, and she was naked from the waist down. After confirming that she was dead, he placed Noah under arrest, and the deputy reported that Noah was not crying and did not appear emotional. A crazy fact about this case is that this became the first reported murder in the city of Osage, Iowa since 1898.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Which, to be fair, this town is very, very, very small.
Very small.
Population of 3,627 at the time of the 2020 census. So makes more sense.
Still,
but still, even
though.
then, that's over 100 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Noah was initially charged with murder in the first degree, which was later dropped to second degree, and assault with the intent to commit sexual abuse. His trial began on April 30th, 2013. His defense claimed insanity and diminished responsibility. His defense called it a, quote, tumor of rage, rendering him insane at the time of the slaying. They also claimed he had a mental illness involving, quote, repeated episodes of impulsive, aggressive, and violent behavior. Here's a clip of his father, William, testifying at his trial.
Do you ever hear Noah threaten to kill Gretchen?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I guess I didn't take it as a threat at the time, but yes. On a few occasions, he said that he wished she was dead in the ditch. He would pull all the hair off his head, his eyebrows, his eyelashes, and he'd pull the hair off his legs.
How about his arms?
Yes, his arms too. Anywhere he had hair, he pulled it out.
His father, William, added that Gretchen and Noah would fight often, but later make up and play games together. She had also bought Noah the .22 caliber Ruger as a present in 2010 when he was about 11 years old as a gift. 3 classmates of Noah also testified, saying that Noah would sometimes become aggressive and violent. He would even stab classmates with pencils at school and talk about killing other students as well as his own mother. Another student had become friends with Noah about a year before the murder. She said that Noah would get increasingly angry over things he usually didn't get mad about. On May 13th, the jury found Noah guilty of murder in the second degree and not guilty of assault with the intent to commit sexual abuse. Whether he'd be tried as a youthful offender or not was controversial. It was also a legal gray area under the Iowa State Supreme Court. It was ultimately decided that Noah would remain under the supervision of the juvenile court until his 18th birthday, meaning he would be monitored, possibly rehabilitated, and reevaluated as an adult. Then he would be officially sentenced and either put on probation or let free entirely. While incarcerated, he attended school and participated in mental health treatment. He graduated from high school on May 29, 2015, and during his incarceration, he was also put on psychotropic medication for a couple of years. All the while, Noah refused to talk about or address any questions about murdering his mother. Throughout his therapy sessions, he never gave an honest answer, and during his meetings with family, he never gave an answer that his family would accept. His father, William, visited him on April 14, 2016, still searching for answers. When he asked Noah why he did it, Noah responded, "I thought we would be better off without her." He then elaborated, saying, "I didn't think of the consequences. I didn't think anything would happen. I thought I would maybe get grounded." His father wasn't satisfied with the response, and Noah's statement didn't add up with his original conversation with the 911 operator when he talked about how he had affected his future after killing his mother. While incarcerated, Noah's behavior and social interactions were closely monitored. One time he admitted that he was, quote, arrogant and stuck up, and he didn't really think anything bad was going to happen to him when he killed his mother. 2 medical experts wrote evaluations of Noah, and one noted that prospects for rehabilitating Noah before his 18th birthday were, quote unquote, nil. The other believed Noah was developing an antisocial personality disorder, but there was not enough evidence for a clear diagnosis. Another psychologist in 2012 noted that Noah wasn't capable of experiencing guilt or remorse, and they concluded there were no treatments that could change his personality traits. Psychologists who evaluated Noah agreed that he knew how to closely follow the rules, and they were concerned he would try to cover up his personality traits until he was no longer incarcerated. These evaluations obviously made the court worried about public safety if he were released, so the state requested a 50-year indeterminate sentence with no mandatory minimum. During a following hearing, when Noah was an adult, he apologized for the hurt he had caused through his actions. Several family members also gave impact statements at the hearing, including his father, William, who said this, quote, "For 4 years, we never talked about Gretchen, not once. He never had any remorse about his mom. I'd push him. He just wanted her out of his life because he can play video games. 4 years isn't long enough to pay for a wonderful woman who did so much at the hospital for all of us, who were all of our rocks that we had to rely on. He needs to pay for his mother's life. And I know that's hard to say, but it's just what it is, kid. It's time you face the piper, I guess, and letting you out today would ruin so many more lives. It honestly would." It's pretty powerful. The court then noted Noah's lack of emotional response, a lack of empathy, and the lack of an adequate explanation for his actions. At 19 years old, Noah was then sentenced to an indeterminate term of incarceration not to exceed 50 years without any mandatory minimum sentence. He was immediately eligible for parole, and the 5 years he had already spent incarcerated were credited towards his 50-year sentence. The court also ordered Noah to pay $150,000 in victim restitution. He appealed, challenging the youthful offender provisions of the Iowa Code, but his sentence was upheld in 2018, and he is currently serving his time at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility. He was denied parole on April 7th, 2025, and will be reviewed again in April 2026. Gretchen Crooks was posthumously awarded the First Daisy Award for Extraordinary Nurses based on her dedication and compassion to her patients, her colleagues, and the organization, and William accepted the award on her behalf. A really tragic story.
Yeah. I think this one, the video game connection, is a bit of a stretch for me. I think there's clearly, especially with all the psychiatrists, psychologists, they were saying, potentially has a personality disorder. Sounds like he just had a lot of problems, and maybe he used games a bit differently than the rest of us, but I don't think the video games really tied into causing him to do something like this. It seems like he was already predisposed to violent outbursts. But yeah, what do you think about the medical professional's opinion on this case? It seems like they didn't all have a resounding agreement on what was going on with him, but they were clearly, noting some problems.
Yeah, it seems like he should have been receiving psychological help far earlier.
Yeah.
To possibly try to get this figured out, get him some help before things spiraled out of control. I think the video game reference is a stretch here too.
I could see how maybe they would play into some violent fantasies and maybe
could desensitize you a little bit from,
and you're able to express that violence.
Yeah, I think the video game reference is a bit of a stretch here. I think it may have, because you could argue too, what movies was he watching? Was he watching violent movies? That would potentially desensitize you to violence as well.
Right.
I think he's clearly mentally unwell and needs a lot of help, because he's clearly lacking in some of these areas, personality traits, empathy, things that were just mentioned are a bit concerning. And the violent outbursts, he's stabbing kids at school with pencils. The violence was extending beyond the home too. It wasn't just directed at Gretchen. He was doing this to others as well.
Yeah.
So as we see with many killers and potential serial killers, these are the early stages of that, right?
Yep.
This type of behavior, acting out, and not having any remorse.
Yeah. Potentially burning his grandmother's house down. We know arson is a big serial killer, psychopath indicator.
Yeah, I agree with the decision here. I think he would be a danger to society.
Yeah.
If he was let out, because who knows what he would do. And if they're not even entirely sure how to treat him, or even what disorders he has, it seems like it's probably best that he remains incarcerated and monitored.
Yeah.
Till they, there needs, if he does get out, there needs to be a rigorous plan to continue monitoring him and ensuring that he's getting the psychological help that he needs and the medications that he needs.
Yeah.
Because this could easily turn into another tragedy.
Right. And even when he wouldn't talk about it at all, even when his dad would just be honest with me in those moments. He just wasn't. And that's concerning. I feel like he can't even own up to it after years had passed. Or kind of he was caught in a lie. He's like, oh, I didn't consider the consequences. Yet on the phone, he's talking about all the consequences. He's like, oh, I wanted to get married. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to have my own company. Like he was immediately thinking about the consequences back then, but he couldn't even really be honest with his father.
Yeah.
After the fact. I think that's really concerning.
The other thing that's concerning with this too is the fact the firearm used was not properly secured.
Yeah, absolutely.
I received a .22 rifle when I was around his age as well, but
did your parents keep it?
My parents kept it locked up. There was a gun lock on a trigger lock on it.
Yeah.
And I was not allowed to keep it in my room, and I wasn't allowed to just have free range access to it, or there wouldn't be a way for me to gain access to it because, it's just there's just no reason.
Yeah,
I mean, you're too young to understand, truly wrap your head around the concept that this is a deadly weapon,
right?
Like you're taught that, proper safety education is important. That's why I took hunter education safety. When I was a teenager, because it teaches you,
in Scouts, we learned, how to gun safety, and then we were just shooting .22 rifles as well. But same thing, always aim down range.
Never pointed at anyone.
Right, exactly. Ever. Yeah, that's a good point. With it blows my mind that was the first murder in this town in over 100 years. And I also found it interesting that their state law, was so gray at the time. It was a big deal. If you go back and you ever, look at some of the news articles of this, a lot of the news surrounded that, oh, well, he's a child. How do we try him? And they eventually kind of came to an agreement like, okay, we'll hold him. He's guilty, but then we'll reevaluate and figure out his sentence once he's a legal adult. And do you think, I think that's kind of fair how they handled this to some degree, because it gave them time to psychologically evaluate him, kind of see his trajectory before they could write up a huge statement, give it to the court and be like, this is where we think he's at, and we think he would reoffend. He's still a danger. And then they would sentence him. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think this is just a part of our criminal justice system we really need to look at in general. I mean, I think because in other cases similar to this, they would have just tried him as an adult.
Yeah.
They would have just been like, well, this was severe enough that we're just going to charge you, as an adult, try you as an adult, and give you an adult consequence to it. And some people would argue that that's the right way to do things, but I think it's really a case-by-case basis, but it's something that really needs to be reworked and looked at, because I think this, as we've seen, as history's played out, that this continues to be an issue with young teens, whether it's murdering their parents or murdering others. It's how do you process them through the criminal justice system properly? And then especially if they have some sort of mental health concern, how are you going to treat that and ensure that if you want to give this kid a second chance, as in some cases there are children who commit murder, I feel, deserve a second chance at life, who fully have wrapped their heads around, they've done the work and they understand what they did and paid for it, but they are rehabilitated to the point that they can be a productive member of society, and they're not a future risk to the public.
Right.
It's very difficult. There's so many nuances and gray areas that I don't have a lot of confidence in the way the system works, and obviously every state's different. But because I think with him, going back to the gun situation, I think he's an individual that even if the gun had been secured and locked up and kept away from him, he would have likely found a weapon somewhere else.
He was, and we could see that. It seemed like he was growing into a violent individual outside of the gun, right?
So again, not putting blame on the gun, but this is an individual who needs serious help. And I hope that they're giving that to him, and he's hopefully making strides in the right direction. But I certainly wouldn't let him out till they feel absolutely confident that they've diagnosed him correctly.
Yeah.
So, because based on everything we just talked about, I would be very concerned about him reoffending in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very complex issue, but kind of circling things back to video games, I don't necessarily think that was as big of a catalyst here as we saw in other the other cases that we talked about. But
yeah, in a lot of cases that I came across, it got, even harder to connect. It was there was some where video games, it was like in the news. It was like, oh my God, this kid played Manhunt, and so he killed this person.
Right.
And then as it went on, they were like, no, we've actually debunked this. The investigators didn't even find the copy of the video game in his house or anything. They didn't even have evidence that he even played it. So yeah, a lot of these, I've noticed it was a little bit of satanic panic where we don't really understand violent video games. So we're kind of,
and it hasn't been studied. They haven't been around long enough.
Yeah,
with ample pool to research and studies done to really derive concrete research.
Yeah.
And
I feel
also,
like it started with like maybe our generation.
Yeah.
Like, access to violent video games that are a bit more real too than some of the older ones. When you play like the original Doom, like a 2D shooter, it doesn't really feel that immersive, but you play some games now, it feels incredibly realistic.
Yeah. And especially with VR.
Yeah.
VR is taking things to a whole other level where you are immersed in the world and it feels real.
Yeah.
Legitimately, and you're moving your body in a way that mimics some of these actions. So I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion as we go, especially into the future, especially with our kids.
Oh my God.
Where video games go. If they continue to go in this VR direction, I think this is going to be become a bigger and bigger issue. I think once some of these games show up in VR with the level of graphics and realism that we're starting to see, on our monitors, I think it could absolutely have an effect on somebody, especially if they're spending hours in multiple ways, not just in violent tendencies, but just in psychological disorders and social disorders. I mean, I think things are going to skyrocket if limitations aren't put on it. And
it's gonna be like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's the crazy reality with video games just in general. Is I think in for most of us, and I'd say 99% of us, it's not an issue. We all we can handle ourselves, and it's used as a treat, a reward, gives us some escapism when we need it, and we're able to function. We're able to function, have happy, fulfilling lives and friendships and social interactions, and it's truly a joy. It's truly something we enjoy doing.
I noticed that the worst interaction that I've had with games is when I still play them and I'm just like bummed, or like they just piss me off. I'm like, why would I play this to just get irritated? That's when I started to like kind of reel back from games a bit. If you're getting angry at games, I don't know, maybe you do some self-reflection a little bit. I know, not trying to call out anyone, but I did notice that within myself a little bit. I'm like, why am I getting so pissed at something that's supposed to be
should be fun? Yeah,
always
should be. You should be enjoying yourself and getting that rush. Like, oh, that was fun. That was
Instead, I'm just running into a hallway, getting headshot in Rainbow Six Siege, and I'm just having a bad time.
Yeah, then it's
not good. Yeah,
or some 8-year-old screaming at you through the headset. Like,
always.
Fuck you, dude.
Yeah, right.
Talking shit. Like it's the experience has changed, and I think everybody kind of finds what works for them. Everybody has a different flavor of games that scratches that itch, right? That just. And it has different purposes for games.
Yeah.
Games serve different purposes depending on who you are and what you want to get out of it.
Right.
That's why they make completely solo games where you don't interact with any other human.
I love single player.
It's you
games.
in the game.
Yeah.
And you can save your progress and turn it off and come back to it.
Yeah,
and pick
I love
up where you left off.
Games,
and it's almost a meditative type of activity for you.
Yeah.
But then there's the heavily social games where, you know, you've thrown the headset on, you're chatting with people.
Oh yeah, like the VR chat rooms. Yeah.
Yeah, or just lobbies for Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto online. I mean, these online games is kind of, you know, where the parasocial relationships come into play that can complicate things. And, you know, because then you sort of introduce yourself and immerse yourself into all of those real world social interactions that you have, and maybe both positive and negative, right? You could have the positive ones where you're hanging out with your buddies. You're like, oh, good job. We just took down this boss. Hell yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Or it could turn into an abusive situation where you're getting berated online. You're getting called slurs, and it can be a really negative experience.
Rainbow Six Siege. That's why I stopped playing it. I tried to introduce my friend to it, and then he was just getting hate messages. So I was like, you know what? This game actually sucks.
Yeah, and even WoW. WoW is notoriously known for being one of the most toxic MMOs out there. That the community in WoW is largely toxic, and people, because it has such an elitist sort of player base to it. Not everybody. There's plenty of amazing people in WoW that I've met, but I've also played with a lot of very toxic people where I joined a group and we all wiped because of me or something. And they're literally calling me the worst things I've been called ever.
Yeah.
And all behind their little fucking avatar. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. You would never fucking say this to me in real life, but you're over here.
Yeah.
And then getting kicked from the group. And then I'm all pissed off. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And that's largely why I don't play WoW anymore, is because of the toxicity that exists within the game versus other games that I play. And I want to feel welcomed. I want to feel like it's just chill, man.
Yeah.
We're just getting on here to
chill games. Yeah.
I want to play games with chill people. I don't want this pressure. I don't want this fucking, you know,
let me hang
this
out.
ain't my job.
Right.
Don't try to act like I have some obligation that I have to fulfill here.
Yeah.
We're all, and so I play, like, the group that I play with in Lord of the Rings Online is a bunch of other dads.
Hell yeah.
We're like a bunch of dads. So like we'll be in the middle of a raid in between bosses, and somebody in the chat will be like, hey guys, quick AFK, 5 minutes. My daughter's screaming.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
And everybody understands.
And everybody's just chill. Nobody's like, oh, fuck them, kick them from the group. We'll find it. No, everybody's like, oh, I'll get up. I'll go take the dog out. I'll grab a beer.
Yeah, no tryhards.
Yeah, it's like,
that's the energy I like. I need to be in the dad.
You got to find the dad group, man.
I've been saying this for years, though. I wish there were. I quit competitive gaming a long time ago, but I wish there were lobbies where you get one lobby is the unemployed who just can play 24/7. Throw them in a separate lobby. Then we got our 9-to-5s, but you game a lot. Get that a lobby. Then you work a 9-to-5, you're full time, and you have other shit to do, and you very casually play.
Yeah.
Give me in that lobby, and I would maybe return to competitive gaming. But every time I get on, I'm like, dude, I used to be pretty sick at like Halo. Anytime I get on like a competitive game now, I get
it's not
destroyed.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Because it's a 12-year-old playing this game as a full-time job, and I can't compete.
Yeah. That's why I don't play any FPS game. I don't play any of those shooter games anymore because they're just they're a grind.
Yeah, they are.
But it's just because everybody's better, and they don't really like match you up with the right players. The matchmaking sucks, and you end up just getting crushed for the round. And then you're just like, what am I doing? This is just a complete waste. I suck. This isn't fun.
Yeah, spending your evening looking at like a kill screen or sitting in
on kill cam. You're just rewatching your death over and over again. You're like, damn, the same fun.
I just don't want to spend my evening like that, man.
I think all three of us would rather immerse ourselves in a world and relax.
Yeah.
And just chill. I want to be able to smoke a little weed, you know?
Right.
And not be like under pressure to perform, or people yelling at me,
right.
You know, or shaming me of like, oh, you don't get on enough.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Like,
I got shit to do.
I'm busy, bro.
I'm busy. That's why I play Hentai Dating Simulator.
Is that real?
No,
like,
no,
what?
No.
I was like, what?
They're probably out there. They're probably out there.
Oh,
I'm gonna look into that. Overlay some gameplay if you find.
Is that what's
any
advertised
games.
on like the porn sites?
Yeah.
Okay, Austin.
It's a whole RPG. It's a 70-hour plus a RPG dating simulator game. No, I have no idea. I'm just making shit up. But no, I think I have a much healthier relationship with games now. I shouts out to Nintendo. Well, we don't know whatever. I'm going to plug Nintendo here, but I find that Nintendo games, the first party Nintendo games, are still games you boot up. You can play with some friends. You can play with literally anybody because they're made to be like even family friendly, right? Even children can play Mario Kart or Mario Party, whatever. You can literally play with anybody of any level, of any background, and you can log off and not feel like you need to put in 1 million hours to be good at it. And like I was saying earlier, the credits roll with a lot of those. You know, you beat Metroid, right?
Spyro.
It ends, Spyro. I think it was what? I like those types of games. I like platformers. Dark Souls. It has an end. Except Dark Souls, you could play indefinitely with like the New Game Plus. But yeah, it does have an end for sure. I just find I like that. I like games where I can check out and be like, I've had my fill of this. I can put it down. Maybe I'll return to it in a few years or something. But yeah, I just can't get into the games that like by design. I'm a big Monster Hunter fan.
Oh,
and even the last Monster Hunter came out, I was like, man, I just really don't have the time to.
There's online for that too, huh?
There is, but I'm like, man, I just
Do you
don't.
play like the campaign or like the story?
You have to get through like a campaign-ish. It's more like a long tutorial, essentially.
Okay.
It takes a few hours to get through. And then it's just like co-op grinding and bashing monsters. But I find myself, I think I put 10 hours in. I was like, I can't even really play this game anymore because it requires too much of my time.
And to be fair, there are people that play WoW casually.
Yeah.
Play solo. And a lot of these MMOs have evolved their games to make them more casual friendly, to make them more solo friendly, because they understand they don't want to lose that player base because they also know when these games came out, these people have grown up.
Right. Yeah.
And the people that they started with are now adults with children, and they know that they don't have time to be in the hardcore raiding guild.
Yep.
You know,
they respect your time. Yeah.
Pushing, plus 20 mythic keys on a nightly basis to keep up with their favorite streamer.
Right.
And so they've made the content soloable, which then the hardcore players get all pissed off about.
You're like, how dare you dumb down my game?
How do you dumb down the game and, give all these solo people adequate rewards when they're not grinding out to. So it's this balance they have to find of like, we got to keep the hardcore players happy. So we got to give them content that's really, really hard to do. That gives them great rewards, but we also want to make sure that the solo casual friendly content isn't just for nothing.
The full-time job with kids.
Yeah, with kids.
Can just hop in and
can hop in and still feel like I'm getting rewards and it's still fulfilling, and it's not just like pointless because all the good gear is, capped for the hardcore people. So it's this delicate dance that all these games have to do. But I think a lot of games have started to really find their way, or they've evolved it to where, the main game used to require you'd quest through all the levels to reach max level for your character. And the main storyline used to require you to group up. In order to get through that main storyline, you'd have to group up with at least 6 people in order to complete the epic storyline. But then they realized that became harder and harder to do because population fluctuations. And so if you can't find a group, then you're just stuck. You can't do it. So then they made it all soloable. And so you can solo all of it. And I think even WoW, one of the other interesting features with WoW is they actually made it so you can do dungeons with AI characters.
Whoa.
So you can actually group up, basically be a solo player and still enjoy all the dungeons of WoW with AI. So basically NPCs in your group. But it feels like you're playing with real players, but you're not having all the social interaction and toxicity, which I thought was really cool.
That's kind of how the Dark Souls games are. I mean, Elden Ring, like they'll give you can summon just the NPCs. You can summon real players as well. But if you just want to play it offline, you could just go summon an NPC and get
that's
you
a
through
great
the boss.
use of AI there.
Yeah, it is. And I think games have been using AI, like NPC technology, for a really long time, Yeah, sometimes you
pretty soon you'll be able to like chat with it, have a nice, pleasant conversation with your AI NPCs,
GG.
Yeah, GG's, guys. GG. Like, yeah, GG's.
Leroy Jenkins. Yeah.
So it's interesting, all of it. Hopefully you learned something today, or maybe you relate. Let us know. And if you're a gamer out there, leave a comment of that one game that you can just never get enough of, and that you always come back to. What game is it?
That's a good question, actually.
We'll be watching.
Yeah,
we'll be watching.
Also, if you're not a gamer and you have stuck through this whole episode, give yourself a pat on the back, because you got through a lot.
There's somebody out there who's like, I've never touched a video game ever, but I've read 5,000 books.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we all have our thing. Yeah,
that's great. You're missing out on the video. No, it's all good. Everybody's got their own thing. The other thing I was quickly going to bring up too is I think the streamer, when games started being streamed and that became a profession, this has elevated all of these issues, because now there's so many kids.
I'm glad you agree with that. I feel like an old man, but I'll stick by. I think when streaming games and becoming a streamer became really popular, that's when video games started to suck.
Yeah.
I noticed that we were just talking. It was like circa 2014, 2015-ish.
I didn't Twitch come online.
I think it was older. It's definitely older than that, but I feel like there was a critical moment. When did Fortnite come out? I feel like that might have been the inciting incident.
So 2011 was when Twitch kind of kicked off. Fortnite really kind of put it on the map, though.
Yeah, and then Amazon acquired
2017.
Acquired Twitch in 2017.
No, that's when Fortnite was initially released. Yeah.
So it was somewhere in between there. I'd say everything kind of changed for the. I could still enjoy games for sure, but I've just noticed there was a pivotal moment somewhere in there, the mid 2010s, where I was just like, man, games aren't what they used to be.
Well, they're kind of not. I think when you go to fund a game,
you specifically think about
priorities
how a streamer could access this game. Yeah,
that's the marketing for the game now. So how many streamers are going to play this? What's the audience they're going to bring to it?
Yeah.
And if you're a streamer, a large streamer doesn't jump onto one of your games, it's going to have at least being a profitable entity, it's going to have a much harder time.
Yeah.
And I think the gaming industry is it's so competitive, and there's just such mammoths that exist that are hard to take down. If you go look at the top stream games on Twitch right now, they don't fluctuate that much.
No.
It's literally the same games.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like the new release. So the new release comes out, everybody starts streaming that for a bit.
Top 2, top 1, but then it'll quickly get out of the rankings fast.
It'll either stay there or it'll disappear into the oblivion.
Yeah.
And there'll be like a handful of people that still play.
It was like PUBG for a while was huge. I played PUBG for a little bit, but it was just that game got old fast. It also looked like shit and ran like shit, but that was kind of the first big battle royale.
Yeah,
I think battle royale definitely took I don't know. I sound like an old man when I talk about this, but
I remember back in Windows 95 Roller Coaster Tycoon, man.
Yeah,
great game,
remember 2-dimensional video games,
playing Pong.
Yeah.
Pac-Man.
Dude, Pac-Man still holds up. That's a great game.
But the three of us could sit here and give you a 10-hour podcast on video games.
Yeah.
But let us know your thoughts on these stories we covered, and drop that game in the comments if you're watching, or if you're not a gamer, drop that activity that you just can't get enough of.
Yeah.
We'd love to see it, but that's going to be it for us today. We appreciate you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, make sure you're subscribed if you're watching us here on YouTube, or, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if that's where you enjoy the show at. But We will see you guys next time. Until then, lights out, everybody.